As My Heart Gives Out by Kira 18 on AO3. Chapter 10 Overload. His fingers glide across the page, feeling the ridge and bumps scraped lightly across his skin as he moves his hand along the lines. He finds that his attention is anything but focused. He tried getting some sleep, but it looks like his mind just didn't want to shut up. It was something he'd expected, and yet it didn't change the predicament he found himself in. New places brought in entirely new space to get accustomed to. More specifically, new noises, people, and senses to temper down and stifle. It made his head pulse in waves, every sound ricocheting through his skull, grating and scraping on his nerves, like chalk on a blackboard. It made him want to scratch at his own skin and peel away his senses. The worst of it, however, wasn't the pain, nor was it the overwhelming stimulation he was being subjected to. No, these sensory overloads were somewhat a familiar part of his life by now, a constant ache he learned to suppress. The thing he could never get used to, however, was an entirely different sensation, one that made him feel as helpless as the day he got his powers. His hands comb to a fist through his hair, a vain attempt at blocking out the screams echoing in his ears. Horrifying cries, heart-wrenching and agonizing. Countless shouts, grunts, and pleas. Ones he knew, with sobering clarity, would go desperately unanswered. Sirens and alarms blare, with a mix of conversations and arguments. The more he tried to block everything out, the more they seemed to mesh and blend into a whirlwind of torment and chaos. It was the helplessness that made it all the worse. It had been some time since he felt this useless, this powerless and weak. His body was still recovering, and his symptoms had been getting worse. Not to mention the gaping emptiness that now resided in place of one of his limbs. It made nights like these unbearable. Shutting the book more aggressively than he intended to, he got to his feet. Ignoring the momentary dizziness he felt at the last movement, and moved as swiftly and quietly as he could through the halls of the apartment. It was late. He could feel it in the pressure of the atmosphere around him. If he concentrated, he would say the time ranges between 3 and 4 a.m. The building hummed with a soft sigh and movements that accompanied the darkest sky of the night. Tilting his head, he searched for Aizawa's heartbeat, steady and calm as he made his way to the living room. His breathing was uneven and shallow, which hinted at the man's bad habits. Not that Izuku was one to judge, given his only unreasonable sleep schedule. He was in his room, though, which meant he could sneak away undetected. If only he could stay quiet and stealthy until he was out and free. Walking like he trained himself to do for years, feeling the best spots to step on, he opened the cupboard near the door, rummaging through the clothes for any kind of bandana. He cursed the League slightly for having ruined his costume. Cotton, rough, and worn out, shifted beneath his skin, and he pulled out what he assumed was a small scarf. He didn't waste any time trying to tie it around his eyes. The familiar weight made something in his chest unwind as he straightened. Somehow it was both a comfort and a relief to have his eyes covered. His glasses had been lost during his kidnapping, and he felt almost naked without them. Vulnerable and open to every curious pair of eyes he encountered. Taking a steadying breath, he twisted the handle lightly, wincing at the sound it made as the wood slipped open, the soft noise sounding somehow louder in the silence. Waiting for a beat to make sure Aizawa was still in his room, he hurried to make his exit, surprised that he got away with it that easily. His movements were slow and unsteady as he made his way down the stairs, foregoing the elevators in fear of them having some kind of sensors that would alert the teachers of any post-curfew activities. He cursed his weak body as exhaustion smacked into his muscles with the barest of efforts. He was supposed to be stronger than this. He knew it. It seemed that almost dying wasn't something one could just shrug off and move on so easily. His chest heaved as he made it down another level, lungs stuttering with the need of oxygen, sucking greedily at the air around him. The great shadow, bested by some stairs. They could mark it on his gravestone, he supposed. One more flight, and he was out. He reminded himself, determinedly. His hand slid across the wall for support as he finally reached the ground level. Maybe he could take a break, he thought tiredly, legs timbering with the effort to stay standing. With shaky movements, he lowered himself onto the last steps, the ache of his muscles flaring as he settled down. Was this how it was going to be from now on? Could he not help anyone anymore? He knew it was inevitable. Eventually, expecting for his body to be this weak after the trauma and surgeries he had been through. The severity of his injuries alone would have put anyone out of commission for a while. Adding that with a few weeks in a coma, you get a pathetic excuse of a vigilante. Taking out his phone, he left a message for the police department, hoping that if he couldn't get there, that someone else would at least try. He stayed there, curled on the last step, his one arm encircling his knees as he listened for the young woman he heard crying out. His heart ached at her pained gasp. He could feel her pain with every breath that rattled through her ribcage as she crawled away from the alley she'd been attacked in. His nails dug into his palm as he heard her skin scrape against the asphalt. She was breathing, he reminded himself, with difficulty. She was still alive. He tried to get up, determination pushing away at his exhaustion and pain as he leaned on the wall beside him for support. It was then that he heard it, the telltale sound of sirens approaching the scene. Relief, all-encompassing and strong, washed over him as he fell back onto the stairs. Tension seeped out of his frame as he heard the medics rush in to help the woman. Guilt seared into his veins then. If he hadn't been so stubborn, maybe he could have gotten her help sooner. Tears sprung to his eyes, unbidden, and he all but ripped the scarf away from his head, pulling at his hair in the process. Frustration and self-loathing spitted from his mouth in a low grunt as he tried to compose himself. He doesn't know how long he stays there. He doesn't feel the time pass, nor does he care to focus enough to notice it. Mind lost in a haze of sensations that crash onto him over and over, like roaring raids of a turbulent ocean. Later, after what feels like hours, he hears the betraying sounds of footsteps rushing through the flights above him. The erratic heartbeat that escorts it makes his guilt stir to life. He bows his head deeper, in between his knees, and pulling at his hair in a fruitless effort to hide himself from the lecture to come. He hears the rapid movements screech to a halt as his guardian finally reaches the stairs Izuku is currently occupying, feeling the stammers of relief that surely make the man's heart stutter and settle as he talks into the phone, currently being held to his ear. "Never mind," he says, voice a little breathless. "I found him." He promptly hangs up after that, cutting off Nezu's response before the rodent can finish voicing his affirmation. Izuku almost wants to laugh at the huff of indignation he hears from another building, a little ways away. "What are you doing out here?" Aizawa's voice is rough and low as he descends the last steps until he's looming right over Izuku's huddled form. "Do you have any idea what—" He cut himself off, for some reason, crouching down closer to the boy. "Are you okay?" His tone is softer now. It makes Izuku want to yell at him instead, to shout in rage as if to physically pull back the anger he heard in his voice before. He knew anger. He thought bitterly. He could deal with anger. He deserved it, after all, but the worry? the pity, and the softness. That he couldn't bear. Izuku, hey, can you hear me? The man continues, worriedly. Izuku flinches away from the hand that tries to settle on his shoulder before he could stop himself. He feels the hero's arm hover uncertainly before dropping back to his side. Sorry. Sorry, it is. He seems to work out his next words carefully. Can you tell me what's wrong? His voice blares like bells in his ears, making him want to bury his head further in between his shoulders. Each tiny sound was an agonizing wall to his senses. Some of this discomfort must show if the way the man's words are whispered is of any indication. Sensory overload? He mutters, or to himself. All right, come on. He mutters in a soft voice and gets up as if to emphasize the words. Can I touch you? Any contact with his skin right now would be agony. He knows. His own clothes felt like needles piercing his flesh with every muscle move he took. And so, he finally shakes his head, a small, absorbed movement that Aizawa must have missed if he wasn't so focused on the boy sitting before him. Okay, then please try and stand up. Sitting here all night won't do you any favors. His arm hovers over him once more, ready to catch him if the need arises. It takes Izuku embarrassingly long to get his feet to cooperate, but eventually, he feels steady enough to move. Their walk is slow and careful as they make their way to the elevators and up to their apartment. Aizawa remains silent throughout the journey, a quiet, steady presence at his side as he finishes crossing the door into the living room. Sit down. I'll be right back. He hears before marching back into his room. Izuku can hear him opening a cupboard, but doesn't bother to listen for more, feeling more exhausted than he ought to be for only having taken a trip down the stairs. The man comes back a minute later, multiple items held in between his arms. He doesn't realize what's happening until a pair of headphones are steadily comfortable on his ears, followed by a soft, silky blanket that's unceremoniously dropped onto his shoulders. He figures it's a noise-canceling device, for even if he can still hear clearly, he can tell the sounds are a little more muffled, distant. It makes enough of a difference that he can let some of the tension seep out of him. The sound, stimulus, settles into a manageable background noise. The blanket, for its part, is so soft he almost wants to cool himself in it, barely resisting the urge to replace the scratchy shirt that hugs from his form with it. Gratitude swells in him as the man doesn't push him to talk, and instead just settles on the seat in front of him. He waits patiently for his senses to settle and subside. I'm alright, Izuku says, eventually, when the world doesn't feel like it's on fire anymore. You can ask. I won't break. How did you know I wanted to ask anything? Aizawa challenges, voice steady and still as soft as a whisper. Your breathing hitched, and I could feel your vocal cords moving. He explained, just as quietly. Plus, I figured you would have questions, given that I wasn't in my room and it's currently way past curfew. Does this happen a lot? He doesn't know how to properly explain it. Yes and no, he settles for. New places tend to hit harder, but sometimes everything gets a little too much, you know? He fiddles with the blanket lightly. Your room was supposed to be partially soundproof. Do the noise cancelers help at all? His worry is clear in his tone as he leans a little forward. They muffle some of the distant noise, but I can still hear pretty clear. He explains, in turn. Is it just the hearing that's overwhelming? Aizawa asks, suddenly. I know there's tactile Simulations that bother you too? You're adverse to touch was enough of a tale, but what about your other senses? He doesn't know what to feel, as the man reads him so openly and obviously. Squirming in his seat, he rises his feet until they're tucked snugly under him. You're right, it's not just hearing, it's everything, really. He takes in a breath. All my senses are heightened, and so I get stimuli from tastes and smells, along with my hearing and touch. The only perceptive I get is my eyes, but you already knew that, he explained. Just how powerful are your senses? The question seems to be aimed at no one in general, as if the man was wondering out loud. Izuku answers anyways. I can taste the coffee you had a few hours ago. 3 cups. I know you put 1 sugar in each and that you overestimated the level of the water you mixed into the last one, he stated, the words pouring out of him, now that he got himself going. I know that you haven't eaten anything since lunch yesterday, but that you had 4 of your jelly pouches, 3 strawberry and an apple one. He could feel the man shift uncomfortably, but carried on. I can also tell that the clothes you're wearing have been freshly washed, but that you spilled some ink on your sleeve not too long ago, and that you already tried to wash it out, but the fabric still smells of both the ink and the soap you used. He really needed to stop, but his mouth just kept going. I can hear the argument of a couple living a few blocks away. I can hear the homeless old man that sometimes sleeps on a bench looking out at the park near the school. I can tell you that it's going to rain in a few hours from the vibrations and temperature changes of the air around us, and I can hear the video game Kaminari is currently playing instead of getting some sleep, just as clearly as I could hear a woman begging for help not even an hour ago. I can hear her heart getting weaker and weaker as she tried her hardest to get to safety, and I could still hear the sirens that blare as the medics finally got to her after I called in her location. He's breathing hard, he knows, but he can't stop himself. He just can't. I hear the bones shifting in your body when you move, and I could just hear how fast your heart is beating right now. I'm scaring you. I know you think I'm some sort of freak. Before he could finish his sentence, 2 arms encircle him, enveloping his body with a sudden warmth that makes the words get stuck in his throat. I'm sorry, Aizawa whispers. I'm sorry I never realized before. He says again, sincerity dripping from his words, arms tightening their hold around him. The contact is grounding, despite the stimuli it gives him. His body relaxes into the hold before he could stop himself, practically melting into the other man's heat. You are not a freak, and you're not scaring me. You could never. One of his hands come to rest on his head, as the fingers that rake through his hair make his body relax. I'm sorry you didn't feel like you could tell me about it before tonight. He pulls away slightly then. I'll talk to the support department. I'll ask if they can make you stronger noise cancelers and other sensory regulations. And I promise you, Izuku, you don't need to try and go out on your own anymore. He continues, oblivious to the world that's currently rearranging itself around his change. Next time you hear someone in need of help, please come to me, or call Tsukauchi, or any other teachers. It's okay to ask for help. I promise it is. The tears he'd been fighting to keep in check finally burst out of his eyes. Exhaustion wells up inside him as he lets himself go. He feels as though a weight has been taken off his shoulders, one so heavy he could physically feel his body sway with its absence. Aizawa stays near him through it all, his heartbeat a steady presence, serving to ground him to reality, as he lets sleep creep into his consciousness. The last thing he feels before passing out is a blanket being settled around him, as a man tucks his feet fully onto the couch. Someone who may or may not be autistic. I'm saying may or may not because I'm not diagnosed or anything, right? Unfortunately. But clearly I have huge signs, and I'm not saying quirky little things. No. I mean, my list is... I have a list. Yes, I wrote a list because I thought, one, it wasn't me who realized this. It was actually my friends who were like, hey, you know, you're kind of... I even had certain friends who literally thought I was autistic and was diagnosed. And I'm like, no. Like, for example, there's some stuff like hyperfixations. I get hyperfixations, which are different from what I would call my hyperfixations or my special interests, which actually, it used to be foxes. It's switched over to My Hero Academia, considering that in the last 2 months, on My Hero Academia fanfiction alone, I've read about 29 books worth of fanfiction of My Hero Academia because I am a maniac. And then there's obviously, you know, my stims, eye contact, the fact that I go nonverbal, what I'm about to talk to you guys in an extensive, which is, what's it called? The sensory overload, chewing, which I guess would go under stimming, but I felt like that needed its own little thing because I was a fucking high schooler chewing holes into my clothes. And the thing about this is I hated the sensation of wet stuff on me. Like, don't get me wrong, I could be in a pool, I can shower, that's fine. But the second one part of my body is wet and the other isn't, I get freaking pissy. As a kid, I really hated showers because I really hated going into the shower and going from dry to wet. And then I hated going from wet to dry. And then I hated dry. I still hate the weird dry, not dry, you know, sensation. It's not as much as I used to. I used to get like really fucking pissed off. Now it's just my hands. I really hate when my hands are dry. I really hate horsehair. That's such a specific thing. But my parents have like a wallet that is just horsehair, and if you, even thinking about touching it is making me want to chop off my hand. Ugh, no, I'm having that icky fucking grossy feeling. Get the fuck, okay. Yeah, that. See this? Just thinking about touching it makes me want to fucking curl into myself and, you know, disappear, but whatever. Sensory overload is what we're gonna here to talk about. As someone who experiences it, and who may or may not be autistic, sensory overload is a pain in the fucking ass. Why? Because it's fucking everything, and fucking, it's like you want to put pause on life because it's too much of everything. And all you're thinking is everything's too much, everything's too much. At least in my experience, that's what sensory overload is to me. The clothes on my back is too much. The air around me is too much. My fucking thoughts are too loud, too much. Everything I'm hearing, everything I'm seeing, everything, well, in the past, everything I smell, but I can't actually smell anymore, which has actually made sensory overload a whole lot easier on me. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. It has made everything so much easier on me. Obviously not everything. Literally cannot go off of my nose if I want to see if something's bad, nor can I go with my taste because since my sense of smell is not pretty much gone, but it's gone and it's slowly diminishing. I have a feeling that I'm probably gonna end up at a point where I just can't smell anymore. My taste buds and my sense of taste is also slowly depleting with my sense of smell because your smell is linked with your taste. 70% of your taste is your smell. So yeah, let's just say my sense of taste is also crap. So unless I get, a lot of the times when I think, okay, I don't know if this is expired or not, I don't know if I'm like, somebody else needs to smell it, somebody else needs to taste it, because I can't judge if that's expired or not. And it's horrible. It's horrible. I fear the day I go, you know, and live by myself and not with my family, because that's gonna be hell. That's gonna be hell. I'm gonna have to be one of those people that just keeps up in track with when I bought stuff, right? Like, if I get milk, I'm not fucking, like, the second the expiry date goes on, or goes off, I have to throw it away. Or I have to get someone to verify it for me. Like, just call up my mom. Hey, mom, can you come verify this milk for me? I'm probably not going to do that, but I'm probably going to have to, unfortunately, throw it away. Because I can't risk getting fucking food poisoning every other day because I chose not to, you know, follow that, you know, stuff. Obviously, here in the now, with other people around, we don't necessarily follow that. We follow when the thing actually expires. But I wouldn't be able to do that if I lived by myself. But as I was saying, sensory overload is shit. Those who are autistic or neurodivergent in general and experience sensory overload, or those who are diagnosed with sensory issues, which I know is a thing that you get diagnosed with by itself, because my brother is diagnosed by itself. Then again, he's also diagnosed with ADHD, so do that with you what you must. Does that make sense? No, it does not. I know you could probably get diagnosed with that by yourself, but whatever. People who experience sensory overload and sensory issues, you understand the struggle when everything becomes too much. And sometimes it comes out of fucking nowhere. It comes out of the fucking left field. Sometimes I'd be in my room, it'd be quiet, it's the middle of the night, everything is quiet, and all of a sudden everything gets to, or not too much. Those aren't like super big sensory overloads. It's just, all of a sudden, my blanket is too fucking soft. It's fucking annoying. Get the fuck off me. Like, all of a sudden, I get super fucking pissed on small little sensors. Like, I remember I was cuddling up with my cat, and I'm like, nope, your fluff is fluffy. It's fuck. I love you. And I gently moved the cat away, and I'm like, okay. I loved cuddling with my cat, and, you know, I accidentally woke him up, but I couldn't anymore. I really couldn't. I was really getting pissed off. I tried for 5 minutes, but I couldn't. But, yeah. Sensory overload is shit, and I can't even imagine having superpowers like Izuku's. Like, Jesus. Like, if I had that, I thank you kindly. I'm unsubscribing from life. Unsubscribing. Not happening. But, sorry, my little brother just came in. So adorable. But, as I was saying, unsubscribing. I don't know about you guys. I'm unsubscribing. I would not be able to handle hearing people's bones shift. Your bones. No, not happening. Okay, but before I end this video, I want to talk about the future of this fanfic. So, Chapter 11 is not uploaded publicly yet. It is on their Patreon, which I'm not in, and not joining anytime soon. Not saying that I would never join yours, Kira18. I just have zeros on my credit card right now. All I have is cash, and I'm too scared to go to the bank by myself to deposit. So yeah, no. Deposit? Is it called deposit? Put money in my card is what I'm saying, right? Right now, the money that's in my card is there for Spotify and for my VPN that I have. So unfortunately, I cannot subscribe until I get my next paycheck. So yeah. Hopefully, we get Chapter 11 before it gets up onto AO3. And if we do, that's going to be great. That's going to be amazing. And you guys are going to get updated way faster than those on AO3. But as if right now, we're just going to have to wait till it gets uploaded into AO3. And it is what it is. Stuff happens. Life happens. And that's fine. But when it gets updated, and if it is before 5 p.m. or before a certain time on my end, it will get uploaded on my channel that very day as well, or the next day. But super fucking quick. I'm subscribed to it, so I will get the notification that it got updated, and I would immediately do it the second I have the time, and it would be uploaded, and it would be uploaded on, 5 p.m. PST. Of that day or the next day, depending on when it gets uploaded. Because if it gets uploaded at 8 p.m., I will not be able to upload it that very day at 5 p.m. No. But if it gets uploaded, I don't know, 8 a.m., yeah, I probably will be able to do that if I notice it on time. But yeah, that's what it's going to be. Hopefully we get the next one really quick and really soon. Last time it was updated, as I said before, was February 2nd of this year, 2024. So it's barely been a month. It's not that long, and clearly they already have the chapter out for the Patreons. I'm guessing, I'm not 100% sure, the Patreons are either beta readers or they just upload it onto Patreon, then they write the next chapter, and when they put chapter 12 onto the Patreon, they upload, the AO3 one, or I don't know how they do it, but whatever it is, we know that chapter, 11 is out there, so we have hope. We have hope, guys. I love what Aizawa is doing with Izuku. I appreciate my friends who, with the kindness of their heart, thought I was autistic, and would accommodate me. with small stuff. It was, one of them even offered me their noise canceling headphones when they noticed that I started going into sensory overload. And they put it on, they gave me their phone, and they, opened up their Spotify because they also know that I fucking hate when it's super quiet. Look, it cannot be loud, but it cannot be quiet. Or at least it can't be loud of different types of noises. Like if I'm in a loud crowd and everyone's talking and it's like loud, I hate that because it's different conversations, different things, and I get overloaded. But put blasting music in my headphones, I am blasting out on that. I love that shit. Woo! But different types of loud. So my friend understood that and did that for me in the kindness of their heart. So I know how it feels to have someone there and actually understand you and give you methods to, not calm down, but not have such overwhelming sensations. So for Izuku to have that, my heart. I'm going to end these notes. It's already 11 minutes of these notes. 11 minutes and 30 seconds. It's going to be 12 minutes probably by the time I'm done with my outro. So, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.